Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. Nigeria has been experiencing tanker accidents with loss of lives and property worth billions of naira in circumstances that are mostly avoidable. From the north to the south and from the west to the east, not even the Federal Capital Territory has been spared. Today, emergency responders and disaster managers are holding safety talks on how best to avert recurring crashes of tankers. Now, who bears the brunt of these catastrophes? Are there rules on how these heavy-duty trucks should ply the highways? And what are the penalties for violations? Are there precautionary measures other road users should take? Tonight, these questions and more will guide our conversation on the topic. But before we go into it, here is this report put together by energy correspondent Lydia Sampson.
Petrol tanker accidents in Nigeria are often attributed to a combination of factors. Some of these factors include incompetent and reckless driving, driving under the influence, overloading, and many others. Brake failure due to poorly maintained vehicle is another additional cause. Poor road conditions, such as potholes and ditches, also allegedly contribute significantly to these incidents. The dangerous practice of skipping fuel from crashed tankers has led to numerous fatalities. Key players insist that addressing these issues are crucial to reducing the alarming rate of tanker accidents in Nigeria.
A lot of factors leading to all these fire incidences, trucks explosion, and one of the many reasons is the condition of the roads. Well, of course, the condition of the driver and the vehicle itself, as well as the climatic condition also. They also play a very significant factor. At the same time, also the behavior of the general public in case of accident, because there is the tendency most times when a vehicle falls for whatever reason, even before the tank opens, they force it open and they start scooping.
In response, the Nigerian government has implemented measures to mitigate these accidents. The Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, NMDPRA, has banned 60,000-litre fuel tankers from operating on Nigerian roads from 4th March 2025. Additionally, proposals to restrict heavy-duty vehicle movements to nighttime have been introduced in the Senate. These efforts aim to reduce the alarming rate of tanker-related incidents and ensure safer transportation of petroleum products across the country.
We found that there had been a drastic reduction on fatalities on the road because we've enforced strongly safe to load initiatives at the depot. If a truck is not safe, given the parameters provided by the road safety, we will not allow it to load petroleum products. Secondly, as you know, we have banned trucks loading in excess of 60,000 litres, and we have been enforcing that strictly since 1st March.
Adhering to the 60,000-litre petroleum tanker ban stipulation on Nigerian roads is seen as crucial for enhancing road safety and preventing future tragedies. Experts acknowledge that the measures aims to mitigate truck-in-transit incidents that have led to significant loss of lives and property.
So we've called on all our members to ensure that drivers are tested and, before they get into loading, and they are also tested, the vehicles tested and inspected after loading before they fly road. And as much as possible, they should abide by the requisite speed limiting, limits approved.
Our appeal to government is that some of they should take a census of those who has above 60,000 litres and see how they can be able to buffer or cushion the effects of reconstruction from 60,000 to 55,000, 50,000, 45,000 litres.
Whenever these horrific incidents occurs, it is the responsibility of all concerned parties to ensure that all relevant authorities are involved in ensuring that the perpetrators are treated appropriately for their actions. Unfortunately, the overwhelming mayhem affects everyone involved, from the tanker drivers, who most often lose their lives, or if they survive, lose their livelihoods.
We may have to come up with a task force that will really stop these people from moving towards all these highly populated areas during the peak hours of the day so that they can move later when you know that the traffic is less.
Effective regulation and infrastructure improvement, they believe, are essential to mitigate these avoidable risks. In Abuja, Lydia Sampson.
Right, that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We're joined tonight by CP Felix Oben. He's Commissioner of Police in charge of federal operations. Thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure, sir.
Right. Let me also introduce Dr. Otive Ibuzo, Founding Executive Director, African Center for Leadership, Strategy and Development. Dr. Ibuzo, good to see you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Right. And here we are also with Barrister Buba Godobe. He's a private legal practitioner. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, the issues are many. Tonight we've couched it, tanker accidents, who bears the brunt? And we'll start off looking at many of the issues that lead to these frequent crashes of fuel-carrying trucks on Nigerian roads. Let's begin by finding out if indeed there are specific safety requirements or guidelines for articulated haulage vehicles in Nigeria and how binding it is. CP Oben.
Yeah, thank you very much. There are indeed very many regulations guiding the use of articulated vehicles on our road. Essentially for now, what prevails is the basic standard requirement developed for the security agencies that requires operating articulated vehicles on the road to meet. The road safety is charged with these regulations and they are so enforcement. They do their audits, they do the training of their drivers, they do their checks on road worthiness, and so many other extant regulations. These regulations are there. And the agencies, the security agencies, we are always playing our collective role to ensure we enforce these regulations as much as we can to make sure the safety on our road is always guaranteed. The regulations are there and the enforcement is always played out very, very regularly.
All right. Well, Dr. Ibuzo, we've seen too many of these crashes happening with the attendant loss of lives and property. And it would seem that all efforts to bring down the numbers have not just worked. What, in your opinion, is going on here?
Yeah, you are very right. On the average, there are over 10,000 road crashes every year, with over 5,000 people dying. And it's really pathetic. And like the backgrounder report noted, there are many reasons for this. Bad road, driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. At times, is caused by fatigue, people driving long periods without sleeping, faulty vehicles, like the one that happened in Abuja recently. It was stated that it was failed brake. And so you see that generally the level of perception of risk by many Nigerians is very low. So you see people who see that there are brake hands problems and they say, let me just manage it when I get to the next quarter. So it's a huge challenge. And like the CP said, there are regulations guiding road usage. There are speed limits, different speed limits for highways, For highways, generally it's around 100 kilometers per hour. For cities, it's different. For crowded areas and residents, it's actually about 30 kilometers per hour. You know, it's preparing for this program that I went to check them. These are not common knowledge among the people. So the level of education, and recall that many people get license without test, without anything. And so, you know, if you are driving, even in this Abuja, any city, go to a roundabout, then you will know the ignorance of drivers. You know, people don't know when to enter the roundabout and when they have a right of way. So there are a lot of challenges which, if we are going to deal with these issues, we need to deal with them. We need to deal with perception of risk by Nigerians. We need to deal with enforcement of the regulations. But first, education of people about the regulations. We need to do what, you know, all other countries do. I don't know whether they have ever tested anybody on whether it's driving under the influence of drugs. In other countries, there are simple tests that you see somebody, you carry out. I think that Nigeria must be reset in different areas because we are having the conduct and lifestyle of 18th century in the 21st century.
All right. So many issues to explore in that one, but let's come to the lawyer who's in the house tonight. And easily, people ask this question: what happens? Victims of these accidents, how does the law take care of their rights?
Thank you, Mr. Stoba, for this question. For now in Nigeria, let me use this word to say that it is unfortunate that as at this 21st century, the blood money, that's money for compensation to accident victims in Nigeria, has not yet been specified, has not yet been passed into law. Senator Ifeanyi and the Uba, the late Senator and the Uba, at the night assembly made a very nice proposal. In fact, he sponsored a bill on how to compensate tanker explosion victims in Nigeria. The law was passed in 2023, 9th March. It was sent to the former President Buhari, but it didn't see the light of the day. It was never assented to. Currently, as now we are in this country, the Senate Chair of the Road Safety, Senator Dambaba Hussaini, in November 2024, also took to himself to sponsor another bill for the compensation of victims of road accidents through the tanker explosions. For now, I think we are happy that the bill has passed through the second reading at the National Assembly, and we are waiting to see what will become of it. That, however, is not to say that there are no regulations concerning accidents in Nigeria. Generally, there are, because there are several laws. The Road Safety Act of Nigeria prescribes penalties and punishments for road accidents generally. The Federal Highway Act also in Nigeria, under the laws of the Federation, which is amended, also provided punishments for drivers who cause death. But to pin down a specific offense that carries a particular punishment for tanker explosion in Nigeria. We are yet to arrive to that level. What normally happens these days is that government in several dimensions would take to themselves to give compensation, to pay compensation to victims, both those that are alive and those that suffered injuries, and to parents of the deceased victims that died in tanker explosions. But recently we witnessed the governor of Jigawa, Namadi, who about a week, within, I think last week, paid a total sum of 800 million naira to victims of tanker explosions, both to those that suffered injuries and to families or members that died as blood money to that to their families. So that is what we can experience now. But however, the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development, UNCTAD, have made several provisions, several frameworks to guide developing countries on how to come up with compensations concerning those who die as a result of tanker explosions. And I think it was that legal framework from the United Nations that guided what is currently happening at the National Assembly in Nigeria.
Okay,
Thank you.
You know, this effort is started some time ago in the last assembly. The late Senator Ifeanyi Uba put something across.
Exactly.
Yeah, it wasn't signed into law.
It wasn't signed into law.
All right. We're being joined now by Bola Udukale, who is the Director General, Nigerian Insurance Association, joining us via Zoom from Lagos. Good evening. Right.
Good evening, out there. Good evening, Mr. Cyril Stoba. Good evening, everybody else in the studio.
All right. Thanks for being with us. And, well, the issue here, part of what we're looking at is who bears the brunt. And let's start off by asking you to comment on these. Vehicles normally are expected to carry insurance covers. We'd like to find out if those who drive articulated vehicles comply with this. Are those vehicles, have you seen cases that they're fully compliant and these vehicles are fully insured? And to what extent do you think that the insurance covers for articulated vehicles?
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for having me on this program. Yes, the first question is who bears the brunt when we have tanker accidents, and like we all know, is everybody. Everybody bears the brunt, from the driver to the owner of the business to the public, everybody. And like it was said earlier on, the driver may lose his life. You get public property being damaged. You have businesses disrupted, and properties are also damaged. So everybody bears the brunt. So and that's the rule of insurance. Insurance play, certain rules, and like we know, at least the minimum of third-party insurance is compulsory in this country today, and it is expected that these vehicles have, the minimum of third-party insurance while they are on the road. So the question is, do they have? Yes, indeed, I would say a good number would have, but of course, we really cannot say all of them would have, indeed, would have. We have so many try to cut corners. They put those vehicles on the road without proper insurances on them. But we have quite a number, especially the ones that belong to corporate organizations. They ensure that they do the property before they put their vehicles on the road. So indeed, we do have these vehicles that have insurances on them, and like I said, especially the ones that belong to the corporate organizations, they do have, and they ensure that they are properly covered while they're on the road. But indeed, there are a whole lot out there who don't have insurances on those vehicles, and when things happen, people are just left in the cold. You see properties that are damaged and there are no compensations. You see lives that are lost and there are no compensations. And I think this is quite worrisome because the law of the land, at least the minimum of third party must be on any vehicle that flies the Nigerian road, and these tanker vehicles are not exempted. In fact, in their own case, it's so important because of the kind of risk they also pose to other members of the public and even to their own and even to the business. So that's the position with the tanker vehicles on our road presently. Thank you.
All right. I will return to you in just a moment, but CP, the matter of insurance here, all vehicles, even the police had put out a notice at one time that they were meant to enforce insurance for vehicles plying the road. But what beats me is for articulated vehicles. Now, yes, we know that you find so many vehicle owners now just go for the minimum, which is the third party. But I do know that in the 70s, the late 70s and the early 80s, where many civil servants purchased cars, using loans obtained from banks, one of the conditions then was that all such vehicles had to be comprehensive insurance. Now, if you could do that for cars, how much more could you do for articulated vehicles that are carrying substances that are highly flammable and dangerous on the roads, heavy duty? Is there anything that says that they should not be made to have comprehensive insurance rather than everyone just going for the third party?
Well, it's very, very sincerely, there's nothing that says they should not have comprehensive insurance. We operate in Liaison in cooperation with National Insurance Commission. And the police response very recently had been to have an engagement with the Insurance Commission on how we can drive this idea of insurance policy for vehicles. Maybe it should interest you, let me inform you. A part of that was that as it is today, we have an operation going on, an enforcement of the third party insurance policy for all vehicles.
All right, including articulated vehicles.
Including articulated vehicles. That is going on the auspices of the Inspector General of Police. We're doing that in response to the articulated vehicle accident we're having nationwide. Our assessment has been that most of these vehicles have become part of the threat to life and property that we experience in the country. And what we do is to collaborate with relevant stakeholders in law enforcement on our road to make sure the basic standard required of all vehicles on the road are maintained. One of it is the enforcement of the insurance policy for all vehicles, and that is going on now across the whole state of the country.
We'll return to this matter of insurance in just a moment, but we also have some other reports. Let's take this one from Lagos.
The brake was failed and the trailer rolled back and it fell down in front of my entrance. It burned about almost 8 cars in my compound and killed one of our mechanics.
It affects one of my car here, which we are seeing here now, this Avanza and the other Murano. Then in our workshop here, it affects about 12 cars.
Sad are the stories of victims of tanker accidents across the country. No doubt its reoccurrence has left behind tales of woes on lips of affected victims, ranging from loss of lives and property to destruction of means of livelihoods, partial or even permanent disability. While the consequences of tanker accidents are not directly linked to victims in most cases, analysts are of the opinion that compensating the victims to cushion the effects is necessary.
In using the best of human endeavors to ensure that these accidents or explosions do not occur, because there is no compensation that can make up for the loss of life of a human person. However, compensation comes by way of insurance, basically by way of insurance. And of course, if negligence is established, of course, the award of damages also becomes compensation. And so all of these should be put together to ensure delivery, because at the end of the day, procedures could be a clog in the wheel of making these compensations realizable.
If we are talking about who should take responsibility, it should actually be the owners of the product. Why do I say the owners of the product? Today, as it is being done, when you sign to convey the petroleum product, the marketing company says we have given you responsibility. Go and ensure a goods in transit. They are only concerned with their product, so that you deliver safely to their location, and whereby you don't deliver to the location, the insurance pays. But that shouldn't be what the government policy should be. The government should consider a policy where other hazards can be insured at a higher premium by the owners of the product, not the transporters.
Negligence, total disregard to lay down rules and cautions are some of the factors identified as being behind the reoccurrence of this tragedy, while enforcement of the necessary steps and rules and penalizing culprits, according to respondents, will go a long way in checking this tragedy.
The vehicles they use are old. Some of the tanker heads you see, they're about 30 years old, and they're not built to drag such heavy load over a very long distance.
Government should persecute all those offenders. If a driver survives accident, he should be persecuted.
Those are meant to checkmate bad behavior. So if a person behaves badly, is not checkmated, the other person will join.
The consensus is that victims should not be left to carry the burden alone. Though accident is inevitable, sensitization and awareness on dangers associated with tankers, especially those with inflammable substances, and strict compliance to lay down rules will go a long way in reducing the damages and casualties that come with tanker accidents.
All right, the next report comes from Dutse.
It left a trail of devastation with many victims suffering life-threatening injuries. Some survivors had been readmitted to Rishirishe Condition Hospital in Dutse due to complications from severe burns and underscoring the long-term impact of the disaster. While the government's initial response provided critical medical care, many victims now face additional challenges, especially emotional distress and financial difficulties. 32-year-old Salisu Badeyi, one of the survivors, remained bedridden with severe leg injury. His struggle goes beyond physical pain as he grapples with the psychological toll of being unable to work or support his family.
Life has never been the same for most of us.
Another survivor, Ruslan Ibrahim, expresses gratitude for the medical care received, however, highlights another pressing issue: feeding his family. As a primary breadwinner, his inability to work deepens his financial challenge.
Our
parents, relatives, the Jigawa state government, among other concerned individuals, are the ones supporting us during this difficult moment.
His testimony underscores the urgent need for holistic support, one that addresses not just medical recovery but also livelihood and mental health. In response, the Jigawa state government has distributed 850 million naira to the victims raised from pledges by sympathizers.
It's absolutely necessary that people make productive use of whatever is made available to them. 4 million naira could be considered as capital large enough to start a viable and profitable business enterprises to provide a means for family support.
Now I will receive 500, 1,000 naira, and I will receive later 3,500,000. It's equal to 4 million.
The funds aim to aid recovery and help those discharged reintegrate into normal life. However, some victims like Ruslan and Badeyi were too ill to attend the event. Their families collected the donations on their behalf, money that will likely go towards survival rather than full rehabilitation. As Jigawa State continues to heal from the tragedy, the government has pledged to strengthen emergency response and public safety awareness.
People should learn from lessons that have occurred so that they will save their lives. What is there? How much is it? How much fuel will you scoop? When you compare with the life or the pain of spending money on medications and losing functions probably.
I will advise any driver that after driving for certain hours that is stipulated, that they should please rest. They should not try to start eating cola or use of drugs. It will not help. You can't cheat nature. So when you are fatigued, when you are tired, look for your park where you're supposed to park. Like all these trailers have their park. They should stay there, park and rest well. Then they continue with their journey.
But survivors and advocates say more must be done, shifting from short-term relief to lasting solutions that prevent future disasters and secure the victims' future.
There are many dimensions to this, Dr. Ibuzo, and even if you were to talk about the causes of these accidents, fatigue, drivers, negligence, where it can be proven, bad roads, and then the other aspect of it, because we've also had situations where there have been accidents and no injuries or deaths initially, until some people decided, as in many of these cases,
to go and scoop.
So that introduces a different angle to it. Who bears the brunt for that? Now, what kind of, maybe we'll ask the insurance lady, so what kind of insurance do you put in place that if there's an accident, some person does not go there to go and expose themselves to risks? Because accidents will occur.
Yeah, I think you are right. There are several factors that are responsible for this increase in tanker road accidents. And there's also the dimension of people who go and scoop fuel. You recall that it happened some years ago in JC, in Delta State, where tens of people, dozens of people died. And if you look at the deaths as a result of this tanker road accident, the number is usually higher when there is scooping of fuel, you know. And so, and there are many dimensions to that, you know. Despite the repeated, you know, calamities and fatalities that have resulted from this practice, if it happens tomorrow now, people will still do, for two reasons. First is poverty, and second is ignorance. And when these two combine in an individual, their level of perception of risk is very low. So, until the next disaster happens. That's why I think that, you know, to deal with all these issues requires a comprehensive approach. And if you look at the UNCTAD framework that Barrister Godebe referred to, it has preventive measures, it has regulatory measures, it has enforcement measures. So there are many things that need to be done, you know, to ensure that, you know, vehicles are roadworthy. Look most tanker drivers, tanker vehicles. You hardly see anyone with trafficator that is working, you know. So, and when you even travel along the road and you see some vehicles who are clearly not roadworthy, so we need to improve our institutions. We need to improve our systems such that if a vehicle is not roadworthy, it's not on the road. And if there is spot check and that vehicle is apprehended, it should not be allowed to go under any circumstances. And then educate the people so that they can follow procedures. And then, you know what these governors have done with the cash giving, they are very good, but these are ad hoc, you know. So we must also look at the systems of insurance, the systems of punishment, and even if the legal system is fine, because some of the people, They are just in their compounds. And then the vehicle comes and fall, like the one from Lagos. And then his own vehicles in the compound get burnt. You know, in the typical Nigerian situation, the person will not even know who to go and meet. Who do you go and meet? But those people, legally, they are entitled to redress from the people that caused those damage. Okay. So it requires resetting of the system, the regulatory system, the enforcement, the individual approach, attitude, and perception of risk, ensuring that people pass examination, driving test before they have their licenses, and after, from time to time, doing a recheck. And we see what happens in other countries. If people breach traffic regulation, it's a huge source of income to many governments. But here, nothing happens. Well, so all of these things, in fact, for me, I think that in this country, we need to reduce politics and go back to governance. And there are many things that requires attention of government, attention of regulatory agencies, attention of law enforcement agencies, attention of the media. And I must commend the NTA for focusing on things like this so that people can become aware of the issues of the day and how they can protect themselves.
Let's go over to the Director General of the Nigerian Insurance Association once again. And I'm bringing back this question earlier I put to Dr. Ibuzo, and it has to do with what kind of insurance can cover this kind of behavior, where initially, let's say an accident has occurred. It could have been as a result of the poor condition of the road. It could have been the driver of the vehicle who's negligent, or the vehicle that's not roadworthy. But be that as it may, and then no casualties. But then here comes a crowd trying to scoop products, and then the ensuing conflagration destroys, kills. Who is covered under that kind of thing?
Okay, thank you very much. Indeed, we do see all of this all of the time when accidents like this do happen. Insurance is not meant to cover, criminal activities of people. However, when you put a drop, for example, a tanker articulated vehicle like that on the road, you are meant to have insurances that cover you for, public liability. Have insurance that cover the content in itself, which is the fuel. That's the GIT. That's the goods in transit. Then, of course, you have the one that covers the vehicle in itself. The one that covers public liability is your, liability to third parties outside there. But a situation where people then do go, there's an accident, nothing has happened, a vehicle is there, the fuel is just flowing on the road, and people do go there to scoop, fuel. And this results in, lots and lots of, casualties amongst the people. Ordinarily, it's not an ordinary cover under insurance that anybody will, create a cover for. Even though we have the public liability cover that you can't take in the event of, your liabilities to third party. But the intention is not for people who deliberately engage in what I would call criminal activities, as far as I'm concerned, coming out of resulting from poverty, resulting from ignorance of the people, where you deliberately on your own put yourself, in harm's way. And of course, the result of this at the end of the day. So in putting insurance cover together, we will not sit to say we are going to cover the people that want to go and scoop oil and engage in activities that ordinarily they should not be engaged in. but insurance will cover your liability to third parties that were not intended, that were not known in the first instance. There's an accident, and of course, from the burning vehicle, houses are burnt down. Other properties around are burnt down. Those were not intended. They were as a result of the accident in itself. But when people go around to scoop, there's no problem. People go around to scoop, fuel on the road, and they get burnt, and a whole lot of things do happen. Ordinarily, we will not sit to, want to carve out insurances for that. But like I did say, for a vehicle like a tanker, you are meant to have, number one, for the vehicle, you have insurances for the vehicle in itself, comprehensive, like you have said. Comprehensive will be a very good thing to have on tankers ordinarily. But of course, the law stipulates that you could have minimum of a third party. Minimum of a third party will still cover you for your liability to third parties, resulting into injury, bodily injury to third parties outside there, that results in death, even in death to third parties outside there, and of course that results in damage to third party, properties outside there. Third party insurance will cover as much as that. But of course, comprehensive covers you, the vehicle in itself, and the business owner, and all of that. But of course, the meaning of third party will ensure that the risk, the exposure to third party in terms of liabilities is covered, and they get compensation, for that, for the incidences that happen resulting from the accident. But a situation where knowingly people go out there to put themselves in harm's way, to scoop, fuel on the road, and results in death, ordinary is not something we'll sit down in insurance and begin to create insurances for, quite honestly, because as far as we are concerned, it's criminal activity, quite honestly. Thank you.
Right. Let's come to Mr. Godobe. Dr. Ibuzo raised, a point here. It says, sometimes the victims don't even know who to go to. Someone is staying in their house, an accident occurs somewhere, and suddenly they find themselves, their homes destroyed, or they suffer injuries. And at times, those people don't even know where to go to seek redress, or even say, look, to request, demand compensation. Yes.
Right. You see, there's a problem here, Mr. Stova. The problem now is you are lying on your bed in the night, suddenly a tanker explosion behind your house explodes, and fire has taken over the whole of your house. Now, for those that lost their lives in the tanker explosion, well, they have died. The question readily available for the next steps, the next compensation, is what we are concerned here about. Nigeria must make a deliberate step. We must take deliberate steps as far as these issues are concerned, because one, the Constitution provides that we should be protected by the ruling class. The Constitution makes provisions for protection, for your rights as a human being. Your life should not be taken away ordinarily. But this time around, it is an accident behind your house that killed you. So the area of concern now is, what would the government of the day do? I'm happy that we are here today to tell the government that these are things that must be done to help ourselves. If not, one day we'll find ourselves becoming decimated, we are becoming reduced because of things that we cannot handle. And that's the reason why the legislators put up some sponsored bills to look into issues that relate to these areas. Somewhere, I read somewhere, is it in Sri Lanka somewhere, and a shell company's tanker, it's an oil tanker that exploded and killed many people. The government of that country forced the Shell BP to pay $4.2 million to victims. So that is, you see, this is another step by government taken to ensure that their citizens, their members, their citizens doesn't lose entirely when such happens. So in Nigeria today, we must take deliberate steps to ensure that what is happening to our people, to our citizens, is taken care of by what will happen within the next few times to come by way of the actions to be taken by the National Assembly. Like I've said earlier, you can't pick out a particular law today in Nigeria now, as I'm talking to you, a law in Nigeria that specified an amount for compensation to such kind of victims who died as a result of tanker explosion. There's no particular law. You can't see it. But it is because of lack of that law that the state, the government has decided now to come in by way of alleviating the sufferings of the victims. Thank you.
CP, let's look at this from another angle in terms of enforcement of regulations. It's alleged that many times law enforcement agencies are not quick to enforce these provisions for two reasons. One, either they're compromised, or second, because when they attempt to enforce these regulations, they face a backlash from citizens. Either the tanker drivers themselves, their unions, or the citizens.
Thank you, Mr. Steve. There are two sides to that coin. The first is that in Nigeria, the citizens have lost so much sense of their civic responsibility. Citizens don't know what they owe themselves or owe the country as citizens. I recall in time past where we've been taught civic education, the basic things that you owe your country to do and all that. Law enforcement is made difficult when there's a larger propensity among the citizens to disregard rules. On the opposite, it's made easier when the larger population of the citizens obey rules. So you just said it all. When you go out to enforce, you meet a lot of backlash. Why are we having a backlash? Because there's a poor understanding of the civic responsibility that citizens owe themselves and the country to make the country work. And so a lot of these things are being challenged out of ignorance, like Dr. said, largely out of ignorance. So we have to get back to the basics. How do we begin to engage our citizens constructively to understand the basic tenet of civic responsibility? That is one. In the Nigerian police, we have tried to be very, very proactive in our approaches to responses to issues like this. I just mentioned our collaboration with National Insurance Commission. Before this one came up, we have taken proactive steps to engage the National Insurance. What do we do to get compliance to issues of national insurance policies? And like I said, there's an ongoing, very intensive national operation of supporting the National Insurance Commission to enforce third-party insurance policy in the country. We engage other law enforcement services, like the road safety and all that, in the enforcement of these basic regulations and things like that. Civic education is important in all this. So we must structure it as part of the integrative approach to save these problems, to get a mechanism that will continually educate the citizens of their own part on all this. Fires are coming up every day after tanker accidents. And citizens still respond to go to scoop fuel. What do we do to stop that? The doctor just said, if it happens tomorrow, citizens will should run to go and scoop fuel. Nobody can stop that if the citizens themselves don't accept responsibility that, look, it's dangerous to do this thing, and so let me not do that. So we should consider that approach also. Let us intensify citizen education about their civic responsibilities to national development.
Well, even as you begin to raise the level of awareness and the risk perception among the populace, you still have the other aspect of it, okay? When it is found out that it's either the driver or the owner of the vehicle that should be held responsible, because either the driver is not qualified to drive that vehicle or has been driving under the influence, or the state of the vehicle. I mean, as you said, go on the roads, and each time you come across these articulated vehicles, particularly tankers, the slightest of gradients, you see that they can hardly go up. Many of them just park up right in the middle of the road. Once there's a small hill, they can't go up anymore. And then when it's downhill, they lose control. So someone has to be held responsible. But you do not hear so many cases, instances, where people are held responsible, prosecuted, and you don't hear that happening.
So, if you look at all of these issues we are discussing, there are three basic problems. First is the level of indiscipline in society is miraculously very high. So people are not disciplined to do things as it should be done. You see some of these tanker vehicles, when they are approaching a gradient, as you have said, the motorboy will carry plank to be holding it so that it doesn't roll back. The second challenge is not taking responsibility and lack of accountability. Because, like we've said, in this scenario, there is a responsibility for a driver. And there is responsibility for law enforcement agencies. Every accident should be investigated to see the cause and to see whether the driver was reckless. There are conditions under which a driver can be prosecuted for even the death, it's called manslaughter.
That's right.
Of the victim.
Arising from the accident.
You will need to find out if the driver was reckless in the driving, whether there was dangerous speeding or overtaking that resulted in the accident. So there are layers of responsibility, and then also responsibility of citizens. If you are in your home, whether there is a law on it or not, and somebody comes and burn down your house, you can find out the owner of the tanker and seek redress. But if you seek redress, how long will it take you? How, if you don't have resources, can this, I know there are all provisions, and that's why I said that the institution, there are provisions for the Legal Aid Council to come to your rescue, even if you don't have money. So what I'm trying to say is that we need to improve. In fact, for me, these issues are more important for governance today in Nigeria than talking about tarring road or building hospital. Because if you solve all these things, those things can be done. And then finally is the erosion of values. And that is why I think we can use this opportunity to call on the president to expedite action on the launch and operationalization of the National Values Charter. The National Values Charter has been revised with 7 key promises that government and its officials will do to Nigerians, and 7 commitments for citizens to be good citizens of the country. And number 1 for citizens is discipline. You know, for many of us that travel to other countries, it's usually very dramatic when we go to other countries and you go to a junction, 4 road, no traffic light, and the middle is empty, completely empty. The person coming from this side will check the time he arrives and when he will pass. And the center is completely empty. Go to any, junction in Nigeria, even when there is traffic light and there is no traffic warden on site, everybody will put their hand. The level of indiscipline in the country is unbelievable. And that is why you see the indiscipline for citizens, the indiscipline in government. For those of us who are staying in Abuja, for instance, you will see government tarring 2-kilometer road from Area 1 to Galadimawa for 15 years. We can't continue in a country this way. There has to be responsibility. There has to be accountability. There has to be discipline. And people need to also have the civic responsibility, know their rights. And then, of course, the systems, the legal system, the law enforcement system have to be transparent and accountable. Otherwise, like I said earlier, we'll be using 18th century mentality to live in a 21st century.
Earlier on, you talked about the absence of any specific law guiding issues today. But then we have other laws, which you also just noted a short while ago, having to deal with manslaughter, where you deliberately cause the death of someone else through reckless driving, such. Those are not the popular cases you see in the courts, are they? Because if I were to ask what the statistics would be, those are, and probably lawyers are not very interested in those ones, except other cases which you, of course, know.
Thank you, Mr. Stoba. You see, I want to align myself with the topic compensation for tanker explosions. But when you talk of causing death by dangerous driving, our codes are clearly defined, and with punitive measures for any driver, any person, any road, any person that uses a vehicle to cause the death of a human being on our roads. There are punitive measures both in the criminal code, the penal code, the federal highway code. In fact, even the Road Safety Act specifies some number of years to imprison such a person who does those things. But where in law, where there's an absence of a particular legal framework, where there's no particular punitive law that provides for a particular offense, lawyers always take the next step by referring to what we call vicarious liabilities, strict duty situations. You can make, you can take an action under vicarious liability before a court of law. Now you can institute a case asking for what was not contained in a particular statute and request the court to do justice over such an issue. So when you hear me saying there's no particular promulgated law that punishes or provides compensation to tanker explosion victims, I really mean what I say. Yes. But since there is no that particular law, lawyers cannot just keep quiet. They can also institute some proceedings against offenders, against people who causes those things before a court of law in Nigeria.
Exactly.
And that's what I'm saying. Under the
Right?
Nigerian legal system.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying, but it's not a popular move amongst lawyers, is it?
It takes courage and expertise of a lawyer to do what I'm talking about. Because duty situation and strict liability offenses and vicarious liabilities are a received English law, we call it law of tort. They are received English laws by the year 1900 that have been domesticated in Nigeria under the Nigerian system. So lawyers have something to do under these areas. This is the only option available for Nigerian lawyers.
All right, we'll take a short break at this point. When we return, we'll explore other issues relating to accidents and who bears the brunt. Stay with us.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
All right, thanks for staying with us. This segment, the phone lines will be open. You can call in with your questions or comments on the issues at stake, and we encourage you to do so without wasting much time on greetings. Just a simple hello would do, and we ask, as we always do, that you turn down the volume of your TV set to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And just go straight to the point so others can also get on the platform and be part of the discussion. We'll start off with another of our reports. This one is coming from Enugu.
Road mishaps often rear their ugly heads due to bad infrastructure, drunk driving, overspeeding, and faulty vehicles. Though unforeseen circumstances cannot be entirely ruled out, thereby leaving behind significant damage along the way.
This incident of falling tankers has so many parts. One is the human part, then the mechanical part of it. So when you see a tanker bearing fuel, be careful. Maybe you don't know the state of the tanker. In terms of its mechanical state. You don't know how the driver is. You don't know what he's doing. Some of them are reckless.
One of the major reasons for this explosion of tankers is due to bad road. Most times when the trucks are overheated, at the point of setting time, they explode. Or maybe at the cause of the bad road, at the point it capsided. Most times even the company give them target. They are working on target so that the number of times you go, it determines the profit you go home with.
On January 25, 2025, a terrible tanker explosion occurred at Ugwuonyama on the Enugu-Onitsha Expressway in Enugu State, where the Federal Road Safety Corps put the casualty figure at 31. Out of the number, 11 members of a family were among the victims.
The thing is actually turning out to be something else, particularly the last one that happened at Ugwuonyama that claimed a whole lot of lives. It was actually a traumatic development.
And also those who suffer most, they are not even the government. Always the commoners. So the road safety on their side, they should regulate their loads. Most time they load more than necessary.
Amid all this, there is a consensus that dying in a tanker explosion is the worst because it can be prevented by simply adhering to basic safety rules. It also leaves even survivor with unbearable pain and irreparable scar. How can this be prevented?
The way forward is let there be a law that is made that will stop these tankers from moving during the day when other road users are there. I think there is, if it is in a developed world, those tankers should have their own route.
Government should stand a role on that. And also we have some NGOs like in the aspect of like the Red Cross Society. It is also their part to do, and individuals. We cannot just shift the responsibility to corporate bodies or government. Individuals that concerned ones can as well do something to those victims.
In all of this, if explosion can be prevented by installing anti-spill devices in cases of a tanker fall, the lower class should see fuel scooping as a death sentence. This is a campaign National Orientation Agency is currently pursuing.
Don't go to scoop fuel from a falling tanker. Moreover, even if you look at it morally, it is wrong. Somebody is losing such amount of goods and they are there going to scoop. Don't go to scoop the fuel. And everybody should take responsibility. So the campaign is on. It's ongoing now. And I'm calling on all the stakeholders, traditional rulers, the imams, the clergy. As you preach, tell these people because they hear from you people. Tell them, please don't go to scoop fuel. It is dangerous.
Oh my goodness. What can be compared to life or with life?
Indeed, what can be compared to life? Absolutely nothing. Therefore, everyone must get involved in tackling this avoidable killer that cruelly snuffs life out of people, leaves dependents at a crossroad, and impinges on the nation's economy.
Right, let's return to the DG of the Nigerian Insurance Association. And my question here has to do with the kind of insurance that's provided under the third party and the premium, which many say is what makes almost every vehicle owner go for the third party and not the comprehensive because of the premium, the high premium paid. But if you're dealing with dangerous and hazardous materials as conveyed by tankers, shouldn't it be specific that those cannot be under third party?
Okay, thank you very much. So the essence of third-party insurance is actually to cover your liability to third party. It's just as straightforward, as simple as that. But in the sense of comprehensive helps to cover you yourself, your vehicle, and the losses that your vehicle will suffer, the losses you would suffer. So the first and foremost thing is that innocent person that is out there, that third party, that individual that is out there, that could suffer, some level of casualties, maybe whether it's death, whether it's bodily injury, whether it's the damage to properties, this individual, the first thing is to protect this individual that is completely outside your scope, which is a third party. And that's why that minimum third party is key, is important. But when you have a comprehensive only ensures that your own damages are also covered. The damage to your vehicle is covered and all of that. But like you have said, should vehicles carrying fuel, should they do just more than third party? Yes, indeed, it's important, because when they have comprehensive, it also ensures that business, you are able to continue with that business, because it covers your own exposure as well. It covers your own damages as well. It covers damages to your own vehicle, to the tanker, so that the man who is in charge of the business, the man who has spent so much, to get, that tanker into he's able to continue with his business. So that part of it is key, is important. But at least in the minimum, an innocent person outside there must get compensation for whatever it is that happened from, from any damage that is caused by your own vehicle being on the road there. Whether damage to that person's property, whether it's death, whether it's bodily injury, it's key. It's very key. Then when we talk of premium, you did mention that probably it's because of the high premium. But I want to say that when you talk of the premium to the liability, it's way, it's not even comparable at all. For a tanker that is carrying 60,000 liters of fuel, and for whatever risk is exposed to on the road, for this tanker and the tanker itself, when you talk of comprehensive, the cost of having a tanker in itself, when you compare all of these to the premium that you will pay to ensure that you have a comprehensive cover, I can tell you for free that it's not in any way comparable. So I think it's lack of awareness. I think it's lack of the fact that people don't even understand what they stand to benefit from insurance. That is why they will talk of, okay, this premium is too high. For example, the third party that we even have a lot of people not even taking up the third party. For a tanker, the third party is just about 100,000. Just 100,000 to do third party, and you still see, people who put these tankers on the road and they don't have third party insurance. And like the CP has said, that is what they are, the efforts that they are putting in now to ensure that there is compliance, even with that third party.
Now, the other aspect, I still want to stay with you a little while longer. The other aspect would have to do with insurance companies meeting their obligations in terms of claims. Now, when you talk about the third party, where you have a large-scale, casualties, as you do in a petrol fire occurring after tanker has fallen, what's the level of claim that can be made? Because you say the third party takes care of the other person who's not, who's out there. Again, there's a feeling that it's so negligible, the amounts here involved, the compensation is too negligible. And of course, insurance companies would not be willing to pay in any case. You find out that when these accidents occur, where there's an insurance policy, it's after the accident that they begin to show you the fine print that you probably just signed without understanding or knowing in the first place.
Okay. So the insurance of today, it's not the insurance of fine prints any longer. That I can tell you. The insurance of today, you have your policy documents that are well written and that you can even sit to discuss with your insurance company before signing anything and clear any gray area. Then when you talk about the claims, in terms of compensations, let's talk about compensation now. For example, even in third party, compensations for death and bodily injury is unlimited. Quite honestly, is unlimited. So it's not a matter of, okay, we are paid 30,000, we are paid 1 million to this individual, and we are not able to pay for the rest, as far as that insurance is covered, is concerned. So third-party bodily injury and bodily injury to third parties and death is actually unlimited. And because there's nothing you can compare to life. It is a property damage that will have some limits. When you talk of property damage with the tankers is about 5 million, and the premium is 15,000 for third-party insurance. So, and when it comes to issue of claims, the insurance companies we have today is insurance companies that pay claims. And because we have a regulator, the National Insurance Commission, like the CP has said, today is driving enforcement in collaboration with Nigerian police force. And of course, apart from driving enforcement within the industry, the mantra of the industry and the mantra of the National Insurance Commission has been claims payment. That's the focus. And because today we have consumers, we have customers that are quite enlightened. We have consumers who have places they can go. You can walk up to the National Insurance Commission to lay your complaints against any insurance company that's not meeting up with claims of obligations. You can walk up to Nigerian Insurance Association, where I work and where I'm the DG, to lay your complaints against any insurance company that is not paying your claims, and we will take it up immediately. So it's not a matter of, at the point of claims, somebody begins to tell stories. As long as your insurance is valid, you have bought your insurance, because a lot of people also don't buy valid insurance. They buy insurances from the roadside. A lot don't even have, a lot don't even understand what they have. They carry fake certificates all over the place and they tell you they have insurances. As long as your insurance is valid, then when there are claims, the insurance companies must pay your claims. And if they don't pay your claims, you can walk up to the insurance company, you can walk up to Nigerian Insurance Association, which is the association of all the insurance and reinsurance companies that are licensed to do business in Nigeria today. You can walk up to the office of the National Insurance Commission in Abuja to lay your complaints, and your claims will be looked into. So it's as far as the issue of claims are concerned, it's really not a problem these days, as long as that insurance is valid. And I want to say again that for third-party insurance, the cover, the compensation for bodily injury, the compensation for death is unlimited. So the insurance companies are they are bound to pay your claims. They are really bound to pay your claims, and when they don't pay, there are sources that you can turn to lay your complaints, and those complaints will be looked into.
All right, back here, CP. In this matter here, the enforcement of the insurance cover, what are the penalties for those who do not have? And of course, the third party thing, as it's popularly referred to, is police let me pass. That's what they call it. So, once you just waive it. And as you heard the DG of the National Insurance Association say, there are so many who are brandishing, fake insurance papers. Some are not registered. No, those are not valid. Just before you take that, we have a caller on the line, Dr. Mahmoud, who's calling in from Abuja here. Hello, Dr. Mahmoud, go ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, Dr. Mahmoud. Good evening. Good evening. Please go ahead.
Hello, good evening.
Oh dear. Good evening. All right.
Yes. I appreciate NTA for their effort in addressing this challenge of trucks and drivers and so on and so forth. Well, my concern is logistics and transportation is a very big business. In Nigeria, it seems everybody just jumped into it without having the capacity to be able to perform. The regulation itself is poor. And last time when I spoke, I advised that we should have the National Security Advisor to champion this issue of tanker drivers. Well, let me emphasize here. In Islam, when you commit manslaughter, the payment for DI is 639 million. And I believe no insurance company can do it maybe 2, 3, 4 times. The insurance company will collapse. So it means it's a very big challenge. It's a big business, which the regulatory authority to regulate it in to address these challenges that we are facing in tanker drivers. Do you know how much they pay some of those tanker drivers? They collect 30,000 as salary. Then when you deliver goods, they pay you for delivering goods. At the end of the day, maybe they earn not less than 100,000. So what do you expect? Some of them, they will make more than 2 or 3 trips from here to Lagos on a stress condition. The driver himself has a motorboy. This motorboy, the transport company does not have any business with him. The motorboy is being fed by the driver. Sometimes when the driver is tired, he gives the motorboy to drive the truck. These are the challenges. If we are serious in addressing this issue, the stakeholder meeting must take place to address these challenges. That is the major issue. Even though it will keep on recurring. Do you know how many people die daily, apart from the tanker drivers, that they will go and give them 100,000, 1 million or whatever? That's not in Islam. You have to pay 639 million. Thank you, Mr. Stover, for giving me this audience. I hope the authority will listen and address this issue, because people are losing their life, and life is sacrosanct. It's very important that we should address this challenge. I appreciate your concern. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, back here, CP. Just before we got that call through, we're asking what the penalties are for those who don't have the insurance cover.
Well, there are clear penalties. Let me make the first point clear. The rate of accident you have on the road in Nigeria are abated seriously, largely on the interventions of the police officers who go on traffic enforcement operations. Bet not for the intervention of the police on the road and other security agencies, it would have been worse. I'm responding to that on the issue of accountability. And when it comes to manslaughter issues or honor offenses, they are always charged to court. When they are charged to court, it's the responsibility of the court to find them, give them offenses as provided by law. Why we took the proactive step with the National Insurance Commission to enforce the third party, it was in the proactive realization that the third party covers the third party, like explained by the Madam Amphio. Those who are affected by the accident, who are not the owners and the vehicle themselves, are covered by the third party. And so in that enforcement, if you have, we'll give a period of grace. As agreed and specified, we encourage you. We have to embark on law enforcement with a human face. We don't just go on the road, arrest people and all that. We recognize that the times are difficult. We need to encourage people to comply. And if you do that, you get better compliance. So we say have that period of grace, encouraging Nigerians. This is a factor. This is why this has to be done, because it benefits you just in case an accident occurs. What is the penalty?
We go back to the phones now. We have God's Gifts calling in from Bielsa. Hello. Good evening. God's Gift, are you there? All right, we'll just have to move on. Dr. Abuja, you have been harping on issues of governance. Yes, there are so many factors that lead to these accidents, but we cannot run away from the matter of bad roads that are almost not motorable. And in which case, who has responsibility for that? But the state. So when the state does not rise to the challenge of taking care of roads, there's so many roads that are in atrocious state in Nigeria today. And the citizens hear regularly, frequently, that contracts are given out, new roads have been built, and they also talk about those old roads that are in such terrible state. Where does the state now begin to take responsibility for whatever happens as a result of bad roads?
Yeah, I think you are right. The government, the state, needs to take responsibility for dealing with the road so that, accidents that are caused by bad road will be eliminated. But the responsibility actually lies at 4 levels, and this is globally. First is that the agency responsible for building roads, that is the relevant ministry at the federal, state, and local government levels, must be able to put internal mechanism in place for ensuring that there are adequate budgetary allocations for road construction and that those road constructions are done. Secondly, there is responsibility at the level of legislative oversight for the legislators at the federal, state, and local government levels to ensure that there is sufficient budgetary allocation for road construction and that the processes for procurement, for contracting, and release of funds are done at the appropriate time. Thirdly, is for independent organizations like the ICPC, EFCC, and then fourthly, media and citizens. Why am I saying this? These 4 categories of people are not doing their work correctly. That is why we are in the state we are in Nigeria. If you see, for those of us living in Abuja, our lived experiences for the past 6 years, for instance, in terms of road. Abuja's budget is a percentage of the federal budget. So it's there every year. But if you look at the number of roads that have been tarred in the past 2 years, and you compare it to the previous 8 years, you will know that there is a difference.
Okay, let me just ask you to pause a while here.
And it's just one of the 4 agencies that I talked about that had a change in terms of the way they do things. Okay. So those 4 agencies must work.
Let me ask you to pause a while while we get this call through. Chibuike calling in from Abuja. Hello. Hello, Chibuike.
Talk. The studio is on you. Talk.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead, please.
As I said before, my name is Chibuike from Abuja.
Go ahead.
My husband is among the victims of Karo Bridge accident, which Dangote trailer had that accident and the gas exploded. He was deeply involved and he is a victim. He had burns, he had crushed wound, and the leg was amputated longer. So the day it happened, he was taken to a hospital, a government hospital. But because they couldn't do it, they don't have equipment for it, he was referred to a private hospital. And we were told that government would take care of the whole bill. But while we were in that hospital, within 3 days, they asked me for 5 million naira, which I don't have. Then they kept pestering me to deposit 5 million naira. I now asked them, I heard that government is taking care of this. Why are you asking me for another 5 million naira? They said that the 5 million naira government gave has been exhausted, that I need to deposit another 5 million naira. So when I told them that I don't have the 5 million naira, they now, after a day, referred me to another hospital, which when we went there, the treatment he was getting there, I was not comfortable. And that was how I now needed for another referral to another hospital, which is a private hospital now. And since we came to this private hospital, I have been spending a lot. In fact, I don't even understand. Is government taking care of this one? Because I know I'm spending a lot. And my husband, as it is now, he's on blood transfusion. I'm in the hospital. He's on blood because he started purging. This afternoon, he started purging blood, flank blood. And when the doctor came, he said that he will be transfused 2 pints of blood. He is on the first pint of blood. All the tests are done. I'm paying the injections, the tablets, everything. I am paying it alone. So I don't know if government will come to my aid, because this thing is too much. They amputated his leg. His face is burnt. The head is burnt. The 2 hands are burnt. The remaining leg is burnt, the stomach is burnt, and this man is in this critical condition, and I'm doing all this alone by myself. I need government to intervene on this. That's why I'm calling.
Well, this falls exactly in what Dr. Abuja had talked about earlier on. Who do you go to? Where do you go to? Gentlemen, who has an answer for this?
I think that, is to go to the Ministry of Health. Since government has made a responsibility, they can go to Ministry of Health. If the minister is not the one responsible, I'm sure they will be able to direct to who is responsible, especially as government has made a commitment that will make the payment. And I think maybe there is also to find out who made the first payment, so that they will be able to follow up on those ones. And I think that's the point we'll be making. That government institutions, media, non-governmental organizations, they have to be more vigilant. And I think that, one of the things, if we can get the phone number, the NTA has a responsibility to follow up, and even maybe those of us, the police, and even myself, we can. Because we said this thing and she has said it to our own hearing. So we should get the number, follow up, and find out which government agencies is supposed to deal with it so that we can bring succor to this family.
All right. Just before Mr. Goodebe comes in, let's take this call from Umar from Birnin Kebbi. Umar Anache, hello. Yes, Umar, we're waiting to hear from you. Umar. Well, this is so unusual for Umar. He's one of our regular callers, and let's hear from the DG of the Nigerian Insurance Association. Any ideas of what to do about the last caller's case?
Excuse me, it's indeed a tough one. Because like it's been said, when things like this happen, the first asset of succor usually comes from government, immediately. And I think there should be structure in place to ensure that this is followed through. I think that's the problem. When there's a structure in place, then people will know indeed, where to go to first, who to talk to. But I think all of those things do come, promises come, but there are no structures in place for people to access whatever it is that government is bringing as a support. At the very first instance when, such calamities like this happen. So I think that structure is important, is key. And in this case, I really don't know who, maybe Ministry of Health, like it's been said, but I think it would be very helpful if there are definite structures in place that people really can follow through in instances like this.
All right. And also from responses in the past, maybe we need to also get in touch with NEMA, because they respond in such situations, and the SEMA for FCT.
Right. Yes.
In addition to what you have just said, my mind was also thinking of that NEMA, because NEMA have a budget for emergencies. Already the FCT administration have promised a succor to the victims of the Nyanya oil tanker explosion. This is an avenue for him to know now that there's a case on the ground now that requires his immediate attention. So we use this forum to intimate him that there's another emergency on the ground right now, though my thinking is also that the day the incident occurred, the data of the victims might be a problem, because the relations of the victims must have carried their patients to various other hospitals around the FCT. Some may even take them outside the FCT.
But first payment has been made to this one. So
thank you. So since first payment has been made, we use this forum to call upon the FCT minister to quickly help in this situation. The NEMA issue is an emergency issue. The National Health Insurance scheme also, if they are empowered, they can also rush into such areas in future. But for now, the case is on the ground that requires immediate attention. And we call upon the FCT minister to kindly look into it.
Right. Well, from CP, this certainly would not be the only case. This perhaps is the one that's been brought to light, and you certainly would have cases like this where people just wouldn't know where to go to, and they just end up bearing the brunt of it all. And this is what we're discussing today: who bears the brunt, either from this part of the state authorities, the victims, or even the enforcement, because somebody here was responsible for that accident.
Right.
This is the thing. And determining whether it was through negligence or some of the other factors that we've talked about this evening.
Well, as earlier expressed, everybody bears the brunt, I must say. Bearing the brunt is their responsibility. Government has their responsibility. The security agencies have their responsibility. The stakeholders, like Dr. Buzo keeps saying, the media, the NGOs, have their responsibility. I have mentioned before, the civil populace have their responsibility. It takes an integration of all this to look at the way forward. Where do we go from here? The views have been expressed. The case on ground now is pathetic.
Right.
And you can see that we don't have any clear-cut structure on ground to respond to it.
Well, with regards to that, I've just received some information that it is actually the FCTA that promised to pay. That's the case of Chibike, who called in now about her husband. Being informed now that it's the FCTA that promised to pay, and that the minister says the FCTA will pay. The initial payment was made by the FCTA, and so it's not the Federal Ministry of Health now. So now this gets now
narrowed down to
the FCTA, which means, of course, that it's in order for you to appeal to the minister to know that there's this situation on ground. Yes, the initial payment was made, and there was a promise that other payments would be made. But now it's left for the health institution to be aware of this and somehow to ease the pressure, knowing that there is a promise by the FCT authorities to pay for this. And this is another aspect that we might discuss. You find that sometimes health institutions would say, look, we're not going to wait until this payment is done. Sometimes there might be some bureaucratic bottlenecks, and then the pressure is put on the relations of the victim. Let's take this call in from Rabiu, calling in from Bauchi. Rabiu from Bauchi, go ahead.
Bauchi.
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, sir. Yes, I think one of our major problems is I want the doctor to attempt this question regarding the tank program in Nigeria. What happened to the railway system and the pipeline, that is crude oil and the refined oil transportation around 70s and 80s? What happened to this place? The political will wasn't there to fix the problems. The truck and the tankers, they even destroy lives, properties, and the road itself. That is why we have the road problems in Nigeria. So I'm around 30 years now. So I don't have the experience to explain more on that 70s and 80s. So since the doctor, I think his age is more than that, we can able to attempt this discussion to explain more, so that we can able to call the Nigerian government into order to fix this problem.
All right.
I think the Nigerian problem is that they concentrate on politics. They not even regarded human life. This kind of problems used to happen and hundreds of lives used to lost. I think the president will have to pay compensation to each and every get back. They can learn the letter.
All right.
So they're supposed to see that. Then the security personnel at the road safety, they're supposed to check the tanker from the place where they used to load. There's no way the accident will happen without the knowledge of the driver. It will be shown by the tanker by itself. Because it's carrying heavy things.
Okay, all right.
So they're supposed to check at the place that they used to load root well and the other things.
All right, thank you very much, Rabi from Bauchi. Thank you. And well, you did mention that you'd be in a position to answer that. But again, what he's referring to is part of the issues here we'll discuss. Alternatives.
Alternatives, yes.
If there were alternatives that worked, then there would be fewer tankers on the roads, and of course, that would translate to fewer mishaps. But again.
Yeah, I think he is right. A lot of, and that is the point we have made since the beginning of this program, that a lot of institutions, a lot of infrastructures, a lot of systems and regulations have not worked optimally in Nigeria. You know, for many years, even the refineries we have were not maintained. After huge amounts of turnaround maintenance contract were given. For many years, the railway system was not touched until, I think, towards the tail end of Jonathan's administration. They started doing the things in piecemeal. But you know today now, the country is not connected together by rail. You know, you can only talk about rail from Itakbe to Warri, you know, from Abuja to Kaduna. So you cannot use rail as a system for transporting goods and services in Nigeria. But rail is supposed to be do those kind of things.
And it did in the past.
Yeah, it did in the past, yeah. So, despite the fact that the gentleman is just about 30 years, he's right that the railway system has been neglected. And that's why I say that, you know, we need to reset Nigeria. And I think that the Tinubu administration has been bold enough to reset some things. It needs to go beyond the things he has reset now to deal with resetting institutions. Okay. You know, resetting discipline, road discipline. In fact, if that is sufficient for a national launch and movement, road discipline, bringing all the relevant agencies, the police, the Federal Road Safety, VIO together and put a system. You know, for those of us who travel to other countries, you know, as you go and use technology and systems, you know, if you go to Ghana here, for instance, you are going to the airport, you know, you don't pay cash to enter the airport. You know, you raised one issue earlier that in enforcement partly compromise, but it's not only compromise. There is a lackadaisical attitude. If I tell you, Cyril Tobas, you are well known in Nigeria. If you drive to the airport today and you get to the airport gate and you say, oh my God, I forgot my purse. Please, I'm in a hurry. They will allow you. I'm telling you. See, I'm serious. You know me? They will allow you. But in Ghana, unless you pay and you put the receipt, the thing will not.
Okay.
So there are a lot of things to be done. We need to do road discipline. We need to do discipline. We need to do enforcement. Right. And from that enforcement, you can get a lot of money.
Let me take out this call just before you round it. Okay. Umar is calling back. Umar, you're back on the line. I was wondering what happened earlier on. If you're there, go ahead quickly. Umar Anachi, okay.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, go right ahead. There we have you now. Go on.
Happy Sabbath to all of you. My name is Umar Anachi, calling from the UK. If you can hear.
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
The issue of tanker explosion, I will start by appealing to the federal government to increase the number of airports in order to avoid the long journey of petroleum from Lagos to Maiduguri, from Lagos to Sokoto. I think it is necessary. Then secondly, I would like to say that it all starts from tanker owners to comply to safety, to our safety from petroleum products. Then the thirdly is the tanker drivers. There is need for enforcement of all the license of tanker drivers, and they should be oriented. That is why another federal government agency called National Orientation Agency is going to be involved to reorient the driver, to avoid giving it to the authorities. There is an issue of tanker boys. They will give it to tanker boys. Then the issue of orientation also to citizens, to know that immediately there is petroleum explosion, everybody
should run for his life first. The safety of life must be ensured. Not the product that you are going to pack in. At the end of the day, you are going to lose your life. So there is need for orientation of our citizens to know that life is value. May God continue to bless our country.
All right. Thank you very much, Omar Anache. And we just have a couple of minutes left on the program, so let's go over to the DG of the Nigerian Insurance Association for your closing comments. Bola Udukali.
Having me here on this program today, my comments are that insurance is very important for us to put our vehicles on the roads, ensuring public. It's key, and there are lots and lots of benefits to insurance. It allows compensations for people to access compensations, and also to ensure that businesses are able to continue as well. So I want to say a very big thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being on the program. Thank you. All right. And back here at the studio, Barrister Buba Godobe, your closing comments.
My comment would be that let the National Assembly bring out laws that will help tanker exploitation victims, and in the law they will promulgate, they should also involve the non-state actors like the NGOs who will immediately sweep into action the moment trouble happens. Put into consideration also the railways, the expansion of more refineries, more
depots.
What do you call it?
Depots.
Depots around the country entirely. Thank you for having me.
Right. Appreciate you.
Okay. So for me, my closing comments is that there is a lot of things to be done in governance in Nigeria. And government agencies, officials, the leadership of the country must prioritize resetting the country. You know, the idea that a law will be changed only when some interest are in that law should not be. If you look at the Third Party Motor Insurance Act, for instance, the penalty for not having it is 10 to 20,000 naira. So there is a need for a reset, overhaul, to bring discipline, regulation, and value reorientation to the country.
Thank you very much. And CP Felix Uben.
Thank you, Steve. Mine is to reassure citizens that the Nigerian police force has all time remain committed to protection of life and property. Our focus on public highway is part of our function to that responsibility. Like I've said, we'd like to encourage citizens also to reorientate themselves on their civic responsibility to national development. The last point made about alternatives route of transportation. Let government prioritize the railway so that we can decongest the highways of the preponderance of trucks. That would be a permanent solution to the issue we have at hand. Thank you.
And as I always say, no one program can take care of all the issues. We must leave this conversation here tonight, and thank you all for being part of it. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.